Today's episode of Off the Timeline is titled The Decision That Quietly Broke a Conference. What if I told you a single resignation, not a scandal, not a lawsuit, quietly set off a chain reaction that rewired college football power for the next 30 years? Not because of who left, but because of who didn't wait. This is an alternate timeline and it starts in 1997 when one rush decision didn't just derail a program, it removed a pillar the sport didn't realize it was standing on. And once that pillar was gone, the collapse didn't come from the top, it came from the middle. Why this mattered nationally. Before we talk teams, here's why this decision mattered beyond wins and losses. College football doesn't break when powers fail, it breaks when stability disappears. In the 1990s, Kansas State wasn't a blue blood, but it was something more dangerous to the system. Proof that patience, structure, and alignment could beat money. That proof held conferences together. And in this timeline, the moment it vanished, everything downstream changed. Wait, this is where it breaks. Here's the moment people miss. In January 1997, Bill Snyder resigns from Kansas State. Not fired, not forced out, he walks. Kansas State doesn't pause, doesn't slow down, doesn't protect continuity. They assume the system will survive the architect. This right here is where it breaks. Because what leaves a Snyder isn't playbooks, it's institutional discipline. Act 1. The wrong read. Kansas State reacts fast, and wow, do they react wrong. Instead of waiting, they hire Kevin Steele. On paper, it makes sense. Young, aggressive, connected, modern. But here's the miscalculation. Kansas State didn't win because it was modern. It won because it was deliberate. Steele inherits a program that requires developmental recruiting, walk-on depth, internal trust, long timelines, and replaces it with churn, schematic resets, recruiting gambles, impatience. Within 2 seasons, the walk-on culture evaporates, the JUCO pipeline dries up, defensive identity shifts yearly, buy-in fractures quietly. Kansas State doesn't collapse loudly, it empties. Act 2. The mirror nobody expected. While Kansas State unravels, Bill Snyder ends up somewhere else. Northwestern. At Northwestern, he has the same constraints, the same academic friction, the same need for patience, and here's the devastating part, especially for Kansas State. It works immediately. 8 wins, then 9, then 10. Northwestern doesn't become flashy, it becomes reliable. And that creates a mirror the Big 12 can't ignore. If Snyder's system works there, then Kansas State didn't just lose a coach, it gave up a model. Act 3, the Big 12 North starts to rot. This is where the damage goes national. Kansas State wasn't just a team, it was the keystone of the Big 12 North. Once it weakens, Nebraska faces less internal resistance. Colorado flashes without consistency. The division loses identity. Suddenly, the Big 12 isn't balanced, it's lopsided. And that imbalance matters because conferences aren't judged by champions, they're judged by depth. By the early 2000s, the Big 12 North is no longer a counterweight. It's a liability. Act 4. Texas notices and stops waiting. Power doesn't break conferences. Imbalance does. Texas looks around and sees a weakened North, fewer national brands, less leverage against media partners, and here's the key shift in this universe. There's no Kansas State left to argue for parity, no model program to defend revenue sharing. So Texas stops debating reform and starts exploring exits. The SEC listens, the Pac-12 circles, and the Big 12 realizes too late that its middle class is gone. Act 5. The fracture becomes final. By the late 2000s, this isn't speculation, it's behavior. Nebraska no longer sees protection in staying. Colorado looks west. Texas stops pretending alignment exists. Kansas State is not in these rooms anymore. Not because it's bad, because it's irrelevant. When the Big 12 finally fractures, it doesn't feel sudden. It feels overdue. And when the survival draft happens, Kansas State isn't rejected. Even worse, it's ignored. Act 6, playoff expansion, locks the door. Here's the cruel irony. Playoff expansion was supposed to widen access. Instead, it froze hierarchy. Northwestern benefits safely inside the Big Ten. Texas thrives inside the SEC. Colorado finds shelter in the Pac-12. Kansas State, winning seasons still happen, but they no longer mean anything. Access now follows membership, not merit, and no system exists to climb back in. Legacy, uncertainty, not conclusion. So here's the uncomfortable question this timeline leaves us with. Did Kansas State make the wrong hire, or did it simply misunderstand what it had and how fragile timing really is? Was the Big 12 doomed by Texas, or did it quietly go away the moment patience left the room in 1997? The answer depends on whether you believe stability is replaceable. College football hasn't decided that yet. If this timeline changed how you see power, timing, or conference collapse, hit like, drop your take in the comments, and subscribe for more alternate histories off the timeline. Because sometimes the biggest breaks in the sport don't come from the top. They come from the moment nobody waited.